Hi everybody. Sorry for my terrible vertical camera angle on my phone. My webcam on my laptop's really bad. It's really fuzzy, so I apologize for my terrible verticalness here. Um, so we're going to be talking about today, or I'm going to be talking about today to you guys, Eric Alfred Havelock, who's British. Not British like the Alfred and Batman. Okay, this is a different guy. Uh, he wrote The Greek Legacy, one of the articles I will be reading this week. He was born in 1903 in England, and he died in 1988 in New York. He was 85. He died from an illness, probably age, and something else combined. It's really sad. But anyway, he was a British classicist who spent most of his time in the U.S. and Canada. Classicist is someone who studies the classics. So, the Greeks, the Romans, Latin, a little around the Middle Ages, all that. When he was young, he lived in Scotland. He went to Greenock Academy, where he was introduced to Greek at age 12, which was cool. So, after that, in 1917, around the early 20s, he went to Leys, which was an English public school, and he was introduced to the Greeks at age 12, which is awesome that he found his passion at age 12. And in 1926, he graduated from Cambridge with the classical and ancient philosophy. So that was interesting. So then, after he graduated, he decided to go to Canada and served as an assistant and associate professor at Acadia University in Nova Scotia, where he met Ellen Parkinson around that time, and he married her, of course, and he had a daughter and 2 sons, and then later he had 10 grandchildren. However, in the 60s, so fast forward a lot from the 20s, he remarried someone named Christine Mitchell, who was a professor of art at Vassar College. She was the author of Hellenistic art, which is similar to what he really liked with the classics and the Greeks and the Romans. However, let's jump backward. So in the 1930s, he was a professor at the University of Toronto, and he was very active in the Canadian socialist movement. He really liked politics. He formed a lot of parties, especially Democratic, and he did a lot of liberal stuff, like for ideas, and he had a whole bunch of he had a whole bunch of like achievements, and he was really out there. Like, he did so much stuff, and he makes me feel bad that I didn't achieve as much. But anyway, so he formed a lot of groups and everything. Like, he was very influential. So he decided that in 1947 he would just move to Cambridge, Massachusetts to teach at Harvard, which is cool. And he served, so in the 1960s and 70s, he served as the chair of the classics department, which is a high up position, at Harvard and Yale. But during his time in Harvard, during his time in Harvard, he assisted in the drafting of the recommendation that female students receive a joint degree with Harvard, which was a huge deal for especially feminism, and how women could go to college and all that. So that's really cool. However, let's get into his philosophy, shall we? Or his way of thinking. So classicists back then, around that time when he was learning and how he was taught, they were taught to look at Greek intellectual history as an unbroken chain of related ideas. So nothing was distinct. Everything just kept going, just was tied together, instead of being distinctual, and that's not a word, but you know what I mean. Everything distinct from each other. So he made a sharp division between the literature of the 6th and 5th centuries BC Greek, with the 4th on the other. So he made a distinct division of the two. And then he later, he did a lot of works like The Muse Learns to Write, which is a really good one. I suggest you read it. I'm sure you can find it online. He wrote a lot about Greek literacy and Western literacy and how without Greek philosophy, we wouldn't have our literacy today. And he just really loved the Greeks. Um, so he really thought that Greek philosophy gave like introduced literacy. Like without them, we wouldn't have that, and we wouldn't have our way of thinking, which makes sense. And a lot of people thought this was controversial and terrible, and a lot of his contemporaries rejected him for that. But he also got a lot of people who admired him, and he inspired you know, their way of thinking to be outside the box instead of just thinking the same thing, that everything is not distinct. So, he founded the field that studies transitions from orality to literacy, which we didn't have, so that's cool too. So he influenced classical studies along with other academic areas, such as the one we're learning about, which is communications, the way of writing and why language is so important. And he thought that the Greek alphabet was the true alphabet, which is awesome. So, I mean, it's crazy to think that way, but it makes a lot of sense. So he was really into how the Greeks, like, inspired us as a Western culture. So I hope you learned something today. Sorry it was a little bit long and terrible camera angle, but I hope you have a great day and stay safe.